October 5th, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the 2000 tick chart using the NinjaTrader 8 platform. This is how I marked up my chart today. You can look at the descriptions below to see where I actually took my trades as well as where I thought I saw setups. There was only one piece of economic data that came out around 5:30 Pacific Standard, which is about right here where my cursor is. It was the unemployment claims for today. You could argue that it caused a sell-off, but the way I saw it was it didn't really cause that big a reaction. This is the pre-market highs and the pre-market lows. The way I saw the charts today, it looked like there was a kind of a small, not a small, but a gradual sell-off with these consolidation areas, a lot of multiple little swings below, and then kind of like this rally, which I try to fit with this purple trend channel going up. And then it broke out. There was this crazy rapid buying that occurred in the market. I couldn't figure out what was happening news-wise to cause this. It was just this, I don't know, knee-jerk reaction that kind of made it move up quickly 10 points from, I think, in a span of about 3 minutes. So there's a lot of candles here. I'll get into it when I get to that part of the chart. You'll see that it marked a super rapid buying because I just saw it and it just take off. It was kind of weird. And then it kind of fell into this other, I wouldn't say a channel because I couldn't get the top of this channel to fit quite right. Because at one point I was thinking here, but then when this price action occurred, it had to overshoot, kind of dragged it up, then I dragged it up again. And then it had this big overshoot here, so it just didn't look quite right, and eventually ended up here. But that doesn't really make for a very clean or usable channel. So I'm going to go into the trades today. I took a total of 3 trades and was green on all 3, which was, well, pretty nice. Let's see. Actually, let me double check. I have 3 trades, but I noticed I only marked up 2, unless I did a miscount. Right, I actually misspoke. I only had 2 trades. I thought I took a 3rd trade. I know I did take some trades on the simulated account because there's just some things I was trying to hammer out and work on. But 2 actual trades for 2 actual green wins. So here we go. So in the pre-market, prices were just kind of chopping up and down. You can notice that it didn't quite, it's trying to break through this 4,300 line and it couldn't quite do it. So it came back and it made about a 25 point range. So it came from the highs to the lows to the highs to the low. I don't trade the pre-market just because it's too early, it's Pacific Standard. I did see this channel potentially going up. So this is what the chart looked like originally. So as prices are opening, I already had the pre-market's high and pre-market lows. And at this point, I'm thinking we're in a trading range, but I don't know that for sure. I did see this as a new low and made a first entry short, but I don't see any setup. Technically, you have a new high, first entry long, second entry long. This is pretty decent, except, you know, it's kind of far from the EMA. I'd rather this candle have actually come down, touch, and then go back up. So you could argue it's maybe bouncing off the midline, but the midline isn't as strong a key entry point as either the high or the low. So I did see this, and also it was kind of at the first minute after the market opened. So that makes me a little, again, more hesitant to take a trade just because during the first couple of minutes when the market opens, there's a lot of orders piled up that will execute right in regular trading hours. So it's a little hard to trust, especially on this kind of setup. It has to be very, very clean and very, very like picture perfect for me to even consider taking a trade. So this would be an almost trade. Prices then continue moving up. Tops, I draw this bottom trend channel, well, this bottom trend line, and I try to make the top fit. At one point, I was thinking it was actually a little bit lower and I had to overshoot. So I was thinking something like this. And it right now fits pretty well. It breaks out and chops around. Of course, later I drew it up to here, but it doesn't really matter because I didn't see a trade or usable trade that I could take this off of. Prices then continue. It goes into this green channel. I didn't see a really good clean entry. You technically have a first entry long right here, and maybe a second entry long. It's already breaking out and coming back down. So this isn't very, I didn't see anything that I liked. Prices then kind of go down. I draw this beige channel coming down. This red channel doesn't exist yet, so ignore it for now. The first setup I saw was actually a new low. It's a first entry short, pulls up. It's about to create a second entry short. Here, it creates a second entry short, so it's a confirmed second entry short. But this is a bad signal bar. It was above the EMA, and it hasn't broken out of this green up channel yet. Whether you drew this green up channel as this way or even tighter and had this as an overshoot, doesn't matter. It just hasn't broken out of this green up channel yet on this candle. So there's no prompt for me to get ready a trade because it's not obvious. And so when this happens, now that this flashed down, you have clearly a confirmed second entry short. It's the trigger bar, if you want to take a short down here, it feels very risky. The size of this candle is quite large now. So taking this trade just felt like, okay, the move has already been made. Unfortunately, the signal bar wasn't good enough, so you just had to leave it alone. If you took it, off a hunch or you just saw something I didn't, you would have been able to write this down probably to about here, especially if it had a runner. The price is going to continue moving down. It falls and breaks out of this green channel, continues downward. I'm just watching, waiting. I see a second setup here. I see a new low. It's a first entry short, pulls back, hits second entry short, and then a second entry short failure. Technically, it hasn't failed yet. It's a decent signal bar, and this bullish engulfing bar is picking up the previous one. The only thing wrong with it is I needed it to actually break one tick above to confirm the failure because you don't know what's going to happen on this next candle. It could actually break and move one tick lower than here. Then you wouldn't have a failure. So at this point, I was watching, I was wondering, and potentially you're at the top of this range here, like a tiny little range right here. So I was reluctant to take a long at the top of this range. So next candle looks like if you weren't as concerned and you took it, you would have profited, most likely got a quick scalp out of it. Here I do see a higher low. It confirms the failed second entry short to go long. It's also a possible triple test. I'm going to get rid of this guy. So you have like one touch, two touch, three touch. Even though it didn't quite touch it, it's getting there. So here you do have a confirmed higher low now. But this signal bar just, in my opinion, just wasn't quite good enough because it formed below, even though the EMA is kind of flattening out, it just kind of formed, it didn't look as clean. I wanted this to actually break above this guy and close either near the high of this guy or slightly above because you have a double top right here. So even though this higher low is there, if you took it, I think it's probably more aggressive than I was comfortable with. So I had to leave it alone. Prices then continue moving up, tops out, and I'm thinking maybe I have a range inside a larger trading range here, especially after I saw this bounce because you have a new high, first entry long, second entry long, but this isn't a very good signal bar to take a long off of, and I wasn't sure if I was actually seeing support here or would actually be lower down here. It touches pretty nicely here, so I did draw this, bounces up to the top, it breaks out, and it comes back down. So at this point, I'm thinking, am I in a larger channel coming down? And this red one has evolved because at one time it looked kind of like this, but I didn't like that there was this overshoot here. So I actually dragged it up to here. And at this point, it was existing as a trend line. And the other half of the trend line was actually down here where this beige one was. And it had this overshoot here. But I eventually dragged it down to here, as you're going to see later. But just keep in mind, I just had an inkling that there's a trend channel coming down, which is the red one, but it didn't quite look like this until it matured a little bit later. Prices continue down, and this is actually where I take my first trade. I saw a new high, saw first entry long, pulls back. This one creates and confirms the second entry long. Now the signal bar here, which would be this guy, is rather neutral, but I did like that it bounced off the bottom of this pre-market low, which is one touch, two touch. It had a breakout here, but it's coming back down and looks like it's making higher lows. So I am thinking, because remember, this red channel doesn't exist yet, I'm thinking there's enough here for a quick scalp to potentially come up and maybe touch this, maybe get out before I hit this red line. But I was also unsure of if there was an actual trading range formed by these two blue parallel lines, because this is hard to tell if it's actually here or actually also fits nicely here. But I had it here at the time, and I'm thinking, do I have enough room to scalp out? And I thought I did. So I actually entered one tick above the previous signal bar just to reduce my risk, because typically you might want to enter one tick above, but I dropped it down here at the chance that it would pick me up, because there's a chance also that it would just take off without me. So I was able to enter and then quickly get my 1 point scalp here. So it was a green trade on the first one. I was pretty happy with it. I also saw came into play, and I thought about it, but I wasn't too sure. I saw this the first break of this up channel. I thought this might have been the first attempt up. So when you're seeing this, you could say maybe this is first attempt and starting the second attempt, but I saw it's just one leg, so it's probably the first attempt. And I thought there was enough oomph or enough momentum to at least get back up and get out before I hit the top of this potential trading range, which I'm not 100% sure of. Then, actually, there's a second setup that occurred, and I thought this was a possible trade after the fact. saw a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. Technically, the second entry long hasn't failed yet, but if you were watching and you're sharper than me, you also saw this as a new low, first entry short, potential second entry short. So the next candle is going to dictate, and if it actually closes below, it's going to confirm not only the failed second entry long, but it's going to create and confirm the second entry short, which would be two key entry points, potentially coming off the top of this trading range. So you have three key entry points. So it actually does occur. So it flashes down, but I didn't see this setup until after the close of this trigger bar. And I wasn't even thinking about the failed second entry long and second entry short because I had just come off this winning trade. So I wasn't immediately in my mind thinking of reversing and thinking the bias would suddenly go the other way. So when this flashed down, then I thought, oh, okay, definitely there was a trade here. And so unfortunately I missed it, and that was okay though. And it looks like it flashes down, breaks out the bottom here, continues going down. So here, I was thinking the trend line for this red channel is here, and then the bottom, as I mentioned, I was thinking maybe it's, I have it locked right now. I was thinking it's actually maybe up here, and when it broke out, I was thinking it's overshoot, and it broke out a second time. I thought, okay, I'm gonna actually drag this down to about right here. So it creates a slightly smaller overshoot. Prices then come up, it chops around, it looks congested in here. I just don't like trying to take a trade in here. Jumps up, it's just, well, it's just very noisy, to be honest. Comes back down, jumps and bounces, and it kind of breaks through. Breaks through. I don't quite see a good clean setup. If you look at a larger time frame, you do see one leg down, pulls up, a second leg down, but I didn't see a setup here that made me feel comfortable to take a long, since overall bias right now looks like it's bearish. Drops around, it comes back, and I thought I had a trading range here. So I actually drew this support, this resistance up here. I wasn't too clear on where the bottom was. So I actually had it up here at one time. There's an overshoot, and I actually dragged it down further to about right here to try to contain more of the price action. But it didn't quite help me see a possible range. I did see this as a new high. So first entry long jumps back and creates a second entry long. So this second entry long, I actually thought, let me see here. The second entry long is a pretty decent signal bar. It closed above the EMA, but the EMA is kind of flat, and I like that it was coming back into this blue trading range that I'd drawn. But there's enough, so there, I like that, and there's enough room to, if you entered here, to scalp out before you hit the top. And I was thinking there's might be a potentially fail breakout, so it has all these things going for it. And I was also thinking, well, when I was watching this, I was thinking this could be a failed second entry short, because you can see this is a new low. You get a first entry short here. Technically, it broke a little bit lower here. Right here creates your second entry short. And the second entry short, it fails on this candle. So I wasn't thinking second entry short this time yet. And then when it fails, I still didn't recognize it as a failed second entry because I just saw it as one leg up, pull back as potential second leg. But then when this candle formed, and then I kind of put it all together thinking, oh, there was potentially a trade here. However, once this candle closed, it felt too late because you're running into a potential temporary high here. But if you were more aggressive, you could assume that the high is actually up here. So this is actually, I think, a possible trade, but I wasn't sure. So I just kind of a little bit hesitant because I also saw this big green bar up, big red bar down, another big green bar up. So this is a little bit too, I guess, volatile for my taste. So I had to just sit and wait. Prices then continue moving. It chops. Pull this in. So at this point, I do like that this red channel has touched once, twice, three times, and potentially a fourth, but it broke out. And I also like that it touches pretty nicely down here. Although it didn't get a third confirmation, I'm just pretty sure we were contained in this price action right here. Prices then continue moving up. It stays within this blue range, which is not the cleanest because it's not containing all the price action, but I wasn't sure if I should actually pull it down to here and contain it even more. You know, at this point, all this price action, whatever setup I thought I had seen, it didn't really matter to what was happening here now. So I did see this as a new low. It's a first entry short. And then here, it creates a second entry short. And I'm thinking when I saw this candle close this strongly, I was thinking this is potentially a second entry short failure. And I did draw the bottom trend support line right here. Although I wasn't sure where the top was, I just knew there's potentially some kind of reaction here because it confirmed three times, fit pretty nicely. I just wish that this one had come back and touched the bottom. And I was thinking the next candle, if it comes back down and closes bullish, then I might take this trade. Unfortunately, it flashes up, so you do get your confirmed failed second entry short, but it's too late to take this trade now because it's already running up against the top of this trading range. And I drew the secondary blue one because I noticed it was, respecting some kind of level here. So I was thinking this could be the trading range, or it actually could be a little bit higher up here. So anytime prices were getting close to either this line or this line, I would just be a little more aware to see if there was a potential setup for a short. It looks like it breaks through, breaks out of this, falls into this yellow channel, breaks down. And I actually saw a second entry long that's hidden right here. So actually it's new high. It's a first entry long on this big red candle. It breaks below and comes right back up. So I saw this as a first entry long, pulls back, second entry long that's hidden. But the signal bar, which should have been this guy, it closed. Let's see. The signal bar, which would be this guy, which also created the second entry long hidden. If it only closed a little bit more bullish, like green, even way up here, I would have felt more comfortable entering the trade. But here I was watching it unfold. I wasn't even really sure I was seeing what I saw. In other words, I wasn't really sure if I was reading correctly as a second entry long that was hidden. But when this candle formed, clearly it worked, or it would have worked, but I felt, okay, it's too late to have taken this trade now because as it was flashing up, I wasn't sure. And then if you wait for the close, you're kind of near the top of this previous resistance. The thing that I did like about this potential setup was this touch once, twice, three times, a fourth time. So it was kind of had all these things going for it, except just my experience level just didn't let me feel comfortable taking this trade. So definitely had to skip it. Prices then continue moving up. This is the second trade that I take. I saw this as a new low. They say first entry short, pulls back, second entry short, closes very strong. So I'm again thinking this could be a failed second entry short. The problem is I'm potentially running into the top here, but I was believing that we're slowly seeing a gradual reversal because I like the EMA starting to turn up. This red channel coming down, it broke out, came back down. It tried a couple of times to come back into this red channel and test the lows. It tried once, it failed. Tried a second time. A third feeble attempt here, didn't even make it. So it's bouncing off the outside of this channel. So I was thinking, okay, we're actually starting to reverse. It's coming off the bottom of this channel here. And I also saw this as a potential failed breakout pullback, whether you took the trading range of this guy or you put the trading range slightly higher. It went in, it could have been a failed breakout here, going back into either one of these trading ranges, but it looked like it failed. So I counted it as a failed second entry short and a breakout pullback. And I like that this signal bar was so strong. So that gave me a little confidence. So then when this one opened, it opened here, as you can see, and it kind of splashed out, came all the way down. And then when it came back up, I dropped in my order and I was lucky to get picked up. And I was thinking, okay, as long as I don't get stopped by this potential resistance, I feel there's enough momentum to carry me up for a quick scalp. Now, when it closed up higher right here, I did like that. So it gave me confidence to hold on to the trade. And right here, I was able to scalp out for a quick point. And prices continue moving up. It hits this resistance here. So when I did have this purple resistance line up here, I was thinking at one time maybe this, and I eventually put it up to here as this is chopping around, and it kind of confirmed the second time up here, so that gave me a little more confidence. And it sets up this other setup that I kind of like, but I didn't take. There's a new high, it's a first entry long, pulls back on this candle, comes down and comes all the way back up, and not only comes back, it goes higher than this one. So it's actually a first entry long, pulls back on the life of this candle, came back up and created the second entry long. So I thought this is a good trade. The signal bar and the trigger bar are all on this candle. It also formed the second entry long here, and it's bouncing off the EMA. So there's a bunch of things going for this trade, but unfortunately, I just didn't take it. And I was expecting it would test the highs of this potential green channel because I kind of drew the connections up here or the touches here. So look a little bit like this previously. And I was thinking, okay, this is the first break. It's first attempt up. But I also thought I might as well go with the idea of this hidden second entry long. So it's like first attempt up, pull it back, second attempt up. And now the second attempt up closed very strong. It could try to make its way up here. But I didn't take the trade. It looks like it would have worked out pretty nicely. I also saw a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. But since momentum is going upward, I was thinking this is potentially a failed second entry short, but I just didn't like the looks of this signal bar. So then this is the second one that closed. Like, okay, this is a little bit better. Here you got to confirm second entry short that failed now, but it's already too close to this purple resistance. So I didn't like this setup, although I kind of saw it happening. I just thought, okay, definitely it's no real safe way to enter, I thought. So then prices then continue up. It breaks out, chops around, enters this other trading range. So I thought, okay, made all these legs up. I need to be careful. Made a first entry long. Technically, you have a second entry long here, but it just feels a little bit far now, and it has an overshoot. So I'm thinking it's going to come back to this side and create an equally sized overshoot on this side. So I was just watching and waiting. Comes back down, bounces around, falls into this beige looking channel that I drew. It consolidates into this trading range, and finally it breaks out, and it breaks out, and it comes right back up. And then here I do see a new low. It's a first entry short, second entry short. The second entry short, I saw this in real time, but I wasn't thinking it's a failed second entry short just yet. But when this occurred, then I marked it as a failed second entry short. Unfortunately, so it held above the EMA, but previously EMA was keeping prices down. So when this clearly flashed up, I was thinking if I was thinking to take a trade, would I have? I would definitely not, because it's potentially hitting the top of this blue trading range. You do have an overshoot here, a failed breakout, came back in. Yes, it's clearly very strong, but the signal bar is terrible, and I would be buying right into the highs. Turns out, depending on what you're going after, it might have worked. If you're trying to scalp with a little bit more safety down here, you wouldn't have gotten filled. And then when you see this candle print, you most likely would have just, if you, as long as you didn't get filled, you would have been okay. Then it creates a higher low. This higher low, I thought, okay, this is confirming the failed secondary short. It's bouncing off the EMA again. And you could argue it's kind of bouncing off this purple line. So I thought, this is a potential trade, but I wasn't sure if was this failed breakout here was actually true, because it's a failed breakout off of the blue, excuse me, out of the blue range and also off the purple. So it's already pushing through the top. So I'm thinking it might be a failed breakout, be pulling back in, even though it create a higher low. So just a few things that was like it could go one way or the other just made me feel I should just sit on this. Then it pulls back. So if you took the trade, depending on how far you're going to take the profit, you might have gotten filled just with just 1 point, or you might have gotten stopped out. Then this is what I call the super rapid buying. I don't know what happened here, but between 10:33 and turn 36, it's only 3 minutes, but look how many candles there were. This just rapidly shot up. I couldn't figure out why it was doing that, but I was just watching and waiting. It flashes through. I drew this bottom resistance or the support, bounces pretty nicely. I wasn't sure where the top of this channel was, and at one time I had it here, but I didn't like those overshoots, so I dragged it up a little bit higher. It finally breaks out and it comes back in. It goes into this consolidation area, and it kind of goes and sets up this very interesting trade that I thought was actually probably pretty decent. But to be honest, I didn't recognize this completely in real time. It was only after the fact, and ideally, as I get better, I would be able to see this in real time. So what we have here is you have a larger visual second entry long. You have a new high. It's a first entry long. Pull back. You have a larger visual second entry long. You also have a larger visual failed second entry short. So you have a new low here, one leg up, first entry short, second leg up, second entry short, and then it fails. You also have a triple test right here, 1, 2, 3, and I didn't recognize at the time because this was happening. I wasn't fully aware. There's a potential resistance, so it's falling into a potential channel. So there's potentially 3 key entry points. The thing is, it is below the EMA and it was chopping up and down, and the EMA is flattening out. But the thing also going for it is if I truly respected and believed that this yellow channel was a valid channel, then as the first break in, one attempt up, this could be the second attempt up. So this is, I think, a possible trade that might have been worth taking. But when I was seeing this, and then this is an inside bar, I wouldn't have known to get my order ready because I just didn't like the looks of this candle. And then when this one flashed up, then I also felt, okay, maybe I felt it was a little too late because it is making lower highs. So what's to say this won't be a lower high? What's to make me believe it's going to actually push up and break through here? But if I put, say, my entry one tick above here, I wouldn't have gotten filled, but it might have been a worthy attempt just to at least take a little bit of risk off the table. So, as I said, I saw this happening in real time, but I didn't recognize it until I went back and looked at it in hindsight. Prices continue moving up. I don't see any good setups that I like. It creates, clear a second entry, but it's very congested here. I just don't like this type of price action. Comes back down. It bounces off this support, but I wasn't sure where the top was as a resistance because I had it here at one time, had it overshoot here, and I thought it fit pretty well. But then when this shot up so high, then I go clearly maybe right here. And then it bounced around, and I thought again, maybe it's actually even higher. Nevertheless, it didn't really matter because as you can see, as prices went into the close, what really mattered was the support and not so much the resistance. But here was getting too late in the day to try to take any trades anyways. So I just kind of stopped trading at that point, was just happy with my 2 trades and my 2 wins. So that's kind of how I saw the charts today. It's kind of whipsawy. And then there was some setups in here, some good setups that I thought. And then overall, it was, I wouldn't say it was particularly tricky. It was a little bit noisy, but for whatever reason, I think I was able to see price action a little bit better today than previously. But it's not to say that it was super easy. It was just, okay, a little more obvious for me today. So hopefully that was helpful.